I think back to the classical tradition, the idea of the great conversation uh, that unites us over generations with the thinkers of the past. And each time, as we think, what is the way forward to the better world, uh, we take what we have. We take what's been gifted to us by posterity, the prior work of our fellows, and then we try to challenge it, or we try to extend it, and we try to go beyond it. And when you ask me if I'm optimistic, this is why I'm optimistic. We had this beautiful thing in the internet that was given to us, and not given to all of us. Some of you are old enough that you helped build it, right? But there is a countervailing force that has taken the internet to exploit it. They have accepted it as a gift to themselves, to the exclusion of everyone else. And I'm thinking of powerful central forces here, whether they are governmental or whether they are corporate. And we actually see this, I think, beginning to distort the blockchain space quite clearly. I think all of you are much more familiar with it than I am, where we see a lot of projects that are being sort of manipulated or contorted or shaped or reshaped to be, as politely as possible, much more fair to the investors of the project than they are to the public in general. And I think that's a corruption to the ideals of the space, the framework of what it should be, what it could be, and what, in my opinion, and ultimately actually my belief, it will be. And that's because you've got all of these projects, some of which are very cleverly self-serving, some of them are very transparently self-serving. And on the other side, you have more publicly serving alternatives. I think over time, over iterations, the common interest will win over the selfish interest. There is some benefit to selfish interest, right? We need to basically allow people the space to try and be self-serving, to try and get ahead, because that incentive drives a lot of creative urges and a lot of people to do work that they would not otherwise perform unless they had this big carrot dangling ahead of them. But in the internet space, in the blockchain space, what we have seen, I think, is people not trying to simply chase the carrot or a carrot, but all carrots. And in so doing, they're claiming them for themselves to the exclusion of everyone else. This is the same when we look at the internet broadly. What Facebook is doing is trying to basically take every carrot in the world and lock it in a Facebook box, an Instagram box, a WhatsApp box that then no one else can interoperate with, no one can access. And if you want to so much as smell their carrot, right, you have to pay Facebook money. And the funny thing is, when you're using Instagram, when you're using Facebook, you're not even in the same room as the carrot. The carrot is exclusively for the advertisers. Because back to that earlier idea that we were talking about, violence and influence, what Facebook sells is influence, right? It's on that same spectrum. It's the softer side. But what they are trying to do is they're trying to manipulate and shape behavior for rent. This is something that I would actually extend to one of the debates that I've been writing about recently on my Substack, central bank digital currencies and their entrance into the space, where they are particularly threatened by the presence or existence of stable coins, such as they are. Right, particularly when people start talking about like Tether and whatnot, they're like, somebody is creating a dollar equivalent or soaking a dollar out of our ecosystem, and then they're replacing it with what? We don't know, whatever. What if we just flood the zone with our own competitor? And we see, I think, when we talk about stable coins, there are these centrally issued stable coins coming from, Coinbase or wherever, that have built into their smart contracts things like blacklists and freezing capabilities for contracts, and they have the ability to burn other people's addresses, and to me this defeats the idea of what a DAO or stablecoin is. A stablecoin that has blacklisting, in my opinion, is not a stablecoin. And this is why I would prefer something like a DAI, or I don't know how to pronounce it. I've only seen it written, but MakerDAO's things die. Because that doesn't have that. It is collateralized and openly sort of visible to the network. There is no question about what's backing it because you already see what's there. And, these things can be voted on, they can be adjusted. And this is kind of a model to me where we see something, the government offers, for example, its CBDCs, or Coinbase offers its next, thing, or Facebook finally comes forward with whatever its thing is. And they're all trying to basically wash tokens out of one economy, whether that's the dollar economy, whether that's out of crypto economy or whatever, into their space. And this is a lot of the competition that I think we see in the blockchain space today. It's very zero sum. And the question that I have to ask is, when we start to look at these older models, actually, that are more tested, that are more proven, like the Bitcoin model, or like a sort of over collateralized model that's on network and open, and more free, that it is centrally regulated. And then you have a CBDC out there, central bank issued digital currency, where they just say, hey, we just created $10 trillion and we sent them to everybody's bank account. But if you don't use them in a week, they disappear, right? And this is what China is test driving today. They can give sort of rebates to juice the economy wherever, but your money has an expiration date. And this gets to the inflation controversies that are happening all over the public domain today. People are beginning to ask a question that has been largely forgotten. One of the privileges of government classically has been to spend other people's money. If we stop talking about other people's money and we start talking about your money, and we start not talking about strictly legally authorized taxes that have gone through long debates and are just continuously, relentlessly covered by media, and we start talking about more secretive forms of taxation, whether it's being performed by a company, whether it's being performed by a government, who should be able to spend your money other than you? We can create networks that answer that question, and I think they will be more competitive than ones that are, shall we say, less transparent.
Thank you. I think it's worthy then at this point to talk about, what Web 3.0, or excuse me, I've been told that that's Web 3. I should not say Web 3.0. That was changed at some point in the past. Web 3 will look like in 10 or 20 years. I understand that's an extremely long scope of time in our world today. But what do you both think it will look like? And Gavin, excuse me, I'll shoot this to you, please.
Well, yeah, it is pretty long time scale. I generally deal in maybe at most 6 months, 3 years, 10 or 20. I mean, we're going to see. It's going to be a very interesting social experiment, because we're going to see just how much the world cares about privacy, self-sovereignty, transparency, knowing that the rules, their assumptions about how a system or a service works are true. And I think this actually, it's an interesting, it's a slight difference with I think what Edward was saying earlier, with the stable coins that like USDC or whatever versus like DAI. I'm not against like stable coins that are centrally issued. I think that there is, they are logic, right? And at the end of the day, I consider my job as like a trust-free consensus software guy, is to develop systems where the stated rules are enforced.